Welcome to Generosity Experience Live. On today's episode, why should your community host a Giving Day? Featuring Kathleen Murphy Toms, National Director of Sales at Neon Giving Days. And featuring Chris Strub, Digital Content Creator at Neon One. And now, here's your host, Tim Sarrantonio.
Welcome to May's episode of Generosity Experience Live, everyone. A live stream show where we look at the ways that nonprofiteers like you can get savvier about the ways that technology can connect you with your community of generosity. I'm your host, Tim Sarrantonio, Director of Corporate Brand at Neon One. No matter when or where you watch our show, you'll love the engaging and valuable conversation to come. If you're watching live with us today, please jump into the comments and share your thoughts with us throughout the show. We have a different giveaway each episode. Today, we have one lucky live viewer that's going to win a special Trapper Keeper full of some sector books and resources. And we also have a few other surprises in store for you for our Giving Day theme. In just a few minutes, we're going to be joined live by our special guests, Kat Murphy Toms and Chris Strub. But first, it's time for the big number. Over 50%. That's the percentage of respondents in Giving Tuesday's quarterly Giving Pulse survey of generous individuals who've indicated that they're giving back locally versus national or international causes. Now, there's well-documented research on the importance of locality in giving behavior. In a 2015 edition of Volantis, the International Journal of Voluntary and Nonprofit Organizations, an article by Rebecca Nesbitt outlined the influence of how long a donor has resided in their community around the donation choices that they may be making. It summarizes previous academic research by stating that when one donates, where one donates has been empirically linked to where one lives in relation to the recipient's nonprofit. The greatest portion of giving takes place within a donor's own community and helps support activities in which the donor is directly involved. Suburbanites tended to support the creation of new nonprofits in their local community instead of continuing to give to similar causes that they used to support when living in an urban environment. And geographic proximity to a disaster increased the likelihood of individuals contributing to disaster relief appeals. Now, there's also research that indicates the longer somebody lives in a community, they may be more likely to give to arts and human service organizations where they live. So, let's take a quick gut check with you, our live audience. Here's a question for you. What's the importance of your location when it comes to how people may support you? Does it matter to them? So let's check the comments. Hello, hello. What's a Trapper Keeper? I didn't know they made those anymore. Yes, they do, Vanessa. Make sure I can see the comments here. Welcome to Rhonda. Earth Gives. Hello, hello. In general, we've discussed the importance of identity when it comes to motivational behaviors in the generosity experience in previous episodes, but we're going to take a little bit extra care and attention to location in today's episode. So I'll continue to look for those comments. But in order to unpack this a little bit further, we're going to be focused on the concept of community giving days. And thank you, Emily, for sharing your thoughts on this topic. But before I dive in too deeply, I want to help define this for those who are either unfamiliar with or maybe have a misconception of what I'm actually talking about when it comes to giving days. First, let's make it clear that I'm talking about something that goes beyond one singular nonprofit. So for the purpose of this episode, we're not touching anything like a university's giving day. This means that it needs to be a collective giving moment that impacts more than one nonprofit at a time with its effort and impact. Second, this also needs to be some guiding force behind it. A decentralized movement like Giving Tuesday is certainly a big giving moment that people may join in, but there isn't a dedicated organization who's driving all the logistics, as we'll touch on in this episode with our guest, Kat Murphy Toms. They're not the same thing. This means that a host is organizing the space for people to find different causes that they care about, but this is still curated by the host as opposed to allowing anybody to join. So I've established what a community giving day isn't. Let's define what it actually is. Definition: Giving Day, an online fundraising event that unites a community or cause group and has a central host entity coordinating the logistics of giving and investing time and resources into drawing in people to participate. Beneficiaries are nonprofits that are connected to the host in some way. Now, what's important, most important about a giving day is that the very definition of the peak end rule is applied to the generosity experience at scale. We remember a memory or a judge of an experience based on how we felt at our peak moments, as well as how they felt at the end. This is how people generally assess their feelings when it comes to the generosity experience. Now, during this process, be it online or through other means like direct mail, there will be a period where you can either capture the donor's attention or and convert it into a gift, or the experience will frustrate them and they're going to move on to something else. Moments like a community giving day are strategically designed to capture attention, break through the noise around the donor's world, not focused on generosity, and give opportunities to activate identity centric giving. Unlike nonprofits attempting to do this on their own, the power of a giving day is that they're designed to give small to mid-sized nonprofits in particular special marketing awareness advantages otherwise not available to them. With many of the clients that we work with, these days are usually held during off periods in the annual calendar, such as during the spring or early autumn months. These events can provide exposure to causes that donors may not even be aware of. This occurs through the directories that are part of giving days, dedicated spotlights as part of awareness building, or even live stream interviews with nonprofits during the day. This last one in particular is what we'll geek out about with Chris Strub later in the episode. The concept itself, especially when applied to local communities, is relatively new compared to more traditional methods like the United Way's employee giving programming. Initially funded by the Knight Foundation and other institutions, the idea was to democratize philanthropy and build capacity through digital fundraising. North Texas Giving Day, Colorado Gives, and Give Minnesota were some of the first giving days founded that are still active today. By 2010, there was a massive expansion of local days sprouting up around the country. Many of these were started and maintained by a local community foundation or the state's nonprofit association. They varied in their size, effectiveness, and impact, but the core idea stayed the same. All of this changed when in 2016, Austin-based nonprofit tech company Kimbia experienced a major technical slowdown that impacted over 12,000 nonprofits across multiple giving days happening at one time. At this point in time, there's only a handful of platforms now that support these types of events due to the complexity and requirements of the different participants. In 2020, the entire Giving Day landscape changed again as COVID-19 set in just as the spring Giving Day season kicked off. Every nonprofit was affected in one way or another by the immediate effects of the pandemic, which Giving Days in April and early May forced to make dramatic pivots to continue their operations. Now, in a post pandemic era, there's a lot of questions around the Giving Day space. Many communities whose Giving Days survived the pandemic are seeing record fundraising totals this spring, sparking a continued interest across the country in launching new Giving Days that can benefit from the lessons learned from 15 years of experimentation and growth. So, whether there is already a Giving Day in your community, or today's episode sparks a broader conversation with your community about launching one later this year or into 2025, let's break down the different roles everyone plays when it comes to a successful event. First, hosts need to be able to manage the website where people go to learn about the day, promote the day, and give support to nonprofits participating and ensure the contributions are delivered in a timely manner to recipients. Then you also need nonprofits. They need to be able to manage their profile in the directory that's built into the Giving Day website. They have different storytelling and engagement elements as part of the page, such as personalized giving levels specific to their mission. Donors need to be able to give quickly and in ways that they want to give. Some of the more sophisticated offerings include donor advised funds and peer to peer fundraising as part of the event. And finally, sponsors and other strategic business partners need to have their brand well represented, including logo placement and special engagement elements like matching gift hours brought to life by the event itself. What I'm most excited about to talk to you today is the massive opportunity our sector has to reconceptualize these events in the generosity experience at scale. While I personally have been a massive supporter of Giving Days, I also feel that there's some major changes that need to be made in order to best support the communities that want to put on a Giving Day. Heavier investments into training, storytelling, and donor engagement beyond the day itself are critical. While the new supporter possibilities are huge with Giving Days, with new donor acquisition sometimes as high as 90% with nonprofits involved in the day, we also know that new donor retention across the sector is 18% at best. Many hosts are so overwhelmed with managing the day's logistics that helping nonprofits connect the dots into a larger strategy is difficult to prioritize. So that's why I'm excited about our first guest, Kat Murphy Toms, one of the most foremost experts on collective giving moments in the world. Let's dive in.
During today's episode, one lucky live viewer will win a $500 donation to a nonprofit of their choice. We'll also be giving away 2 Trapper Keepers filled with some of Tim's favorite reads for nonprofits. Join the conversation with us live for a chance to win one of these 3 prizes. Winners will be announced at the end of the live stream.
Hello, Kat. How are you today?
What's happening? How are you, Tim? Thanks for having me.
I'm thrilled to have you
That was
here.
too much of an introduction, my guy, but I appreciate you.
Well, okay. Let's get into it. For folks who might not be familiar with the world's foremost expert on collective giving moments, and hyperbole barely, in my opinion. Why don't you tell us your journey in terms of becoming the sector's hype woman when it comes to community giving days?
So I came into fundraising in the nonprofit sector via electoral politics and community organizing. So I was on the Obama 08 campaign, and if you'll recall, this was really the early days of Facebook and Twitter, right? It wasn't quite the 90s, like today's show theme, but it was the early 2000s. And so social was still pretty new at that point. And during the campaign, we were kind of playing with this idea of like, could these tools that were up until this point being used to like show off what you had for breakfast that day, right? We would like post status updates. It was quite lame. Could those tools be used for social good in addition to showing off the avocado toast? You had these tools that could reach massive amounts of people with very, very little effort. So, of course, you know how that election panned out. You've heard countless stories about the deep structural changes that it made in the world of grassroots funding and fundraising and bootstrapping a $778 million campaign through $10 donations, mostly received online. And so after that campaign, I ended up at my state's Regional Association of Nonprofits here in Illinois. And one of my mandates became to teach our nonprofit members how to do social media. And I always have a good chuckle remembering how all of this went down. It was around the time that Giving Tuesday came into manifestation, and I'd spend a good amount of my time on the phone repeating to development directors, yes, pound Giving Tuesday. Yes, you have to put the pound sign in. Of course, I'd explain why. And I eventually went on to join the Giving Tuesday team as director of digital strategy. And now I'm on the Neon One team this past winter, helping to power more giving days and more peer-to-peer generosity. And so all that to say is that I've had the great fortune in anticipating the potential for things like crowdfunding, things like collective action, community mobilization using digital tools. And so I love giving days, always have. I think there's really, truly no other mechanism at all that accomplishes all of the goals of a giving day, which is to scale up funding in a specific location, to introduce causes to new people who might not know about those causes, to use the day as a test ground for innovation and for trying new tactics and ideas, for boosting a city's philanthropy and civic engagement from absolutely every sector, including corporations, small businesses, and for engaging young people. All of these things that a giving day can accomplish, there's truly no other mechanism that accomplishes all of those things.
I mean, you're stealing my thunder on my next question, which is why people should prioritize this type of situation. So let's maybe touch on that a little bit more, kind of in the duality in many ways, that when you're building a platform versus just kind of a singular nonprofit campaign, why should in many ways both the hosting organization and the nonprofits themselves get excited about this and not feel, oh, that's just a distraction, I should just be doing regular fundraising, things of that nature? So maybe kind of help contextualize like why this is actually worth the effort when it's done well.
Why this is worth the effort when it's done well. There are so many different reasons for hosts to organize days like these and for nonprofits to participate in these, right? Like I mentioned before, the most common reason that a giving day will come to exist is to drive more funding directly to local nonprofits, right? Nonprofits who are on the ground, many of them working on the most important causes of our time. You've certainly been hearing the news about individual giving being down across every single metric. I just think that this is an even stronger case for us to be doubling down on the creation of these giving moments in our communities. I think we need to be creating more of these opportunities because it's one of the only things that exists that inspire people to participate actively in our communities, right? People need a reason to get involved. They need us to be creating these moments. And we see this most astutely, of course, with disaster giving, but it's true across the board. We need to be allowing and inviting people in to our organizations in a more meaningful way.
And I think what's exciting about the evolution is also, besides just local communities, we've also seen cause-related items. Like we have Rhonda Bernard of Earth Gives. So that's hyper-focused on environmental causes, for instance. We have Hannah Braun, who's even saying like, hey, like I hadn't heard of this. If anyone knows one supporting the unsheltered, like, which I actually, Kat, off the top of my head, I'm not sure if there is one.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to see more of that.
Yeah.
We need more cause-based days.
Cause-based days, yeah.
Donors don't necessarily know. They'll feel really passionate about a cause, but they might not know exactly who or where to give. I think there's a huge opportunity to developing more cause-based days.
So what are the key ingredients that go into hosting a successful day?
Okay, number one.
Okay, I'm just gonna bet Chris, put her full screen for this one. Let's
for my monologue about key successful ingredients. Okay, number one, I think hosts need to invest heavily in marketing efforts. That if you build it, they will come. That strategy only works in one particular movie and one particular movie alone. If that was a 90s movie, right? Wasn't it? Did I make my first 90s reference?
I believe
there we
so.
go.
And we got some, and we also we got some great comments coming in, even making the distinction between cause-based days. We got an expert here too, Emily, right here too. So keep going, but this is good. Yes, and yes, okay. Your 90s reference check.
Okay, hosts. We need to be investing in marketing, right? We need to be investing in driving traffic, attention, energy to our Giving Day site. And posting a few times on our own foundation or host social media pages is not going to cut it, right? We want to be investing in things like full-page newspaper ads, op-eds in the local paper. Get yourself some TV and radio coverage. Buy ads on Spotify or iHeartRadio. They're actually really inexpensive. Digital billboards are also really cheap, especially if you're only needing them for one day. Check out Blip billboards. When I ran a giving day, I took out the sidewalk billboard outside of the Prada, which was on the Magnificent Mile in Chicago, like the high shopping. It was during Giving Tuesday, so it was the high shopping season, Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And this billboard said, some wish lists are more important. And then it was a graphic that listed out warm clothes, food, shoes. And we guilt tripped those Prada shoppers into coming over to our website and redirecting those funds to some local nonprofits who needed it, right? My point is get the word out in every single possible way that you can. Key to success number 2 is similar, but the Giving Day's whole goal is to make a huge splash in your community and inspire as many people as possible. And Giving Days are one of the biggest and most important ways to do that. And so capitalize on that energy that you're building and host an in-person event or a live stream alongside your Giving Day. And Chris is going to get into this in a little bit, but there's really nothing else like it to create hype. I've seen nonprofit fairs, like where a nonprofit will table at the brand new bar or just a really great, cool, kick-ass outdoor space. At the mall, the VFW hall, you can do this anywhere. During COVID, I saw a bunch of really creative versions of this where there's like a drive-through nonprofit visit sort of a tour. You can develop a scavenger hunt through your community. There's all kinds of different ways to create and build excitement during your day. It's a great chance to give your community an opportunity to meet the people who run these organizations, to really, truly, deeply understand the issues and understand that they can be a solution to that problem, right? And then key to success number 3, Tim, you mentioned this in your monologue, equip nonprofits with the tools that they can use to get the word out to their active constituents and their supporters. And you have things like social media and text message toolkits, but also reminders for them that they have these tools available to them throughout the period of your Giving Day. And you've got a really great opportunity to use the Giving Day as a space for innovation. Can you use the Giving Day to educate nonprofits on new tactics, weird tactics, different best practices for fundraising? And your tech provider should be able to help you with this. But I've also seen, and I think this is a great strategy, to combine nonprofits and use them and help them collaborate and teach each other, learn best practices from each other, right?
Almost like a cohort learning model in a way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. Now, I just gave a whole bunch of ideas and maybe they all seem great, but you're worried you might not have time to do any of these keys to success to a successful Giving Day, right? My advice is to adopt a technology platform that's going to automate the process of registration, the onboarding, streamline the administration side of things so that you as the host have more time to do the most important thing, which is getting the word out to your community in fun and exciting ways that your event is happening. So the last thing that I'm going to say about best practices for hosts for a successful Giving Day is that, dear host, it does not have to be just you or your organization running this thing, and it shouldn't be, right? It can and you can and should be developing a planning committee. Involve the whole community in the planning and the organizing of your event. Have an events committee. Have a coalition of local restaurants and task them with organizing a dine out, do good program, right? Pull together marketing and PR team from some of your corporate sponsors. They would love to give their time and energy and expertise. Let them loan you their connections, right? Have a youth committee. I'm not seeing enough of this. It helps. It accomplishes a lot, right? Your community foundation or your organization, your membership organization doesn't need to be the only one shouldering this event, right? And and they shouldn't be. If you get your community involved and you get more buy-in from them, that's going to compound your reach exponentially. It's going to give you greater participation rates in the end.
Well, and I think this is critical for one. Some of the folks were even saying, like, they're referencing cause awareness days that may exist, and there's a big difference between something that may be on the calendar where people in a decentralized way say, we're going to talk about this thing, versus the very hyper intentional momentum builder, that peak end. It's built into the very thing itself. Now, I want to touch on, because some of the folks watching may be like, I'm a little nonprofit, I don't know what you're talking about here. How can individual nonprofits get involved? And also, let's keep in mind some of the critiques I've heard for hosts are that it's inequitable when it comes to how different nonprofits might get involved, because it's like, well, the leaderboard just shows the very large nonprofits making the most money. What have you seen where?
Well, first of all, the leaderboard doesn't have to behave that way. And if you're adopting a tech provider, that the leaderboard doesn't have to display.
I'm not talking about us, but yeah.
Okay, a lot of things I have to say to nonprofits.
Yeah, for nonprofits,
we're all really struggling with finding new donors, right? That's like probably the number one thing we're struggling with. Giving days are the entryway to this. Yeah. So number one key to success on a giving day is peer-to-peer campaign. Mm-hmm. Find 5 to 10 of your best supporters, your best friends, those volunteers who are like at mission. They show up to every single thing. Instead of asking those folks to donate on the giving day, ask them to fundraise for you instead. So in other words, ask them to give their network and their voice instead of dollars. And the reason you're doing this is because you're gaining access to their network of individuals that you might not otherwise have access to. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So come up with a specific project, illustrate how a certain dollar amount might yield a certain impact, and then coach those fundraisers along the way. Send them reminders to text message 10 friends today and give them copy pastable text message to send. Remember to share on social media, right? The reason peer-to-peer works is because people give to people who are passionate about causes. They do not give to organizations.
Yeah.
If a friend of mine asks me to contribute to their cause that they're really amped about, I am 100 times more likely to contribute to them than if I am simply scrolling on my Instagram past a nonprofit social media post. So your best strategy on giving days, or even outside of giving days, huge fan of peer-to-peer. Assemble a team of your best ambassadors and then lean on them to give you access to a whole new cohort of supporters that you will probably not otherwise have access to, right? Giving Day provides the perfect opportunity or reason to launch a campaign like this. And then some other strategies I've seen work really, really well for nonprofits are to do something really bold and creative, right? Issue a challenge. I saw once, fairly recently, I saw an executive director of a homeless organization that stayed on the roof of their building, of their homeless shelter, until they reached their goal. And so staff brought her lunch. It was like nearing nighttime, and she was live streaming this whole thing, by the way. It was nearing nighttime, and she was going to have to sleep up there, but they ended up making their goal in the 11th hour. And so they're live streaming this the whole time. She's just got her phone, right? Really easy, live streaming. And it gives her an opportunity from up on the roof to talk about, and I think she mentioned this, here's like the helicopter view of what the issue is of homelessness in our community. And here's what it is when you bring it out down into our house. Here's how our organization is affecting change, and then how you can be a part of that change. And it's a little gimmicky, right? But it works. It's something creative. It's something engaging. To get people excited about your event.
We got some awesome comments in the chat. Emily's also our rock star going on in terms of also another Giving Day host expert. Kat, we can obviously talk for a long time, but Chris Strub, he's going to be coming on. He's also a good time master. So I got one final question for you, and then we have a trapper keeper to give away.
All right.
To somebody. What's the future of Giving Days in the Neon One ecosystem, if you want to share a bit about that?
I mean, the future is bright, right? We've got quite a bit up our sleeves. One thing I'm looking forward to is launching some new features for companies and for sponsors of Giving Days to get more involved in a meaningful way. What does it look like if they can engage their employees and maximize their corporate social responsibility in a tangible and more meaningful way that's going to benefit both the company and the community? We talked about this already, we're seeing more and more cause-based Giving Days, and I'm really looking forward to growing those further. Because people know what causes are important to them, but they might not necessarily know of what organization, right? So I'm amped. I'm pumped. I want to see a return to that height of giving days that you mentioned
Yeah.
in your monologue, right? Like 2010, let's bring it back, baby. Community giving in every city in America.
I love the throwbacks, including transition-wise. It's time to give away a Trapper Keeper. And it's not just a Trapper Keeper. I'm also filling it with, especially given the peer-to-peer focus, Kat, I'm going to also make sure to include Katrina Van Huss's and Aldous Fulton's book, Social Fundraising, which is the book on peer-to-peer fundraising strategy. I'll have some other things in there, but I'm going to make sure for this winner, we include that. So
That's a good one.
let's spin it. Let's spin the wheel of names. You get on here by commenting. So let's go. Who's winning? Vanessa.
Vanessa.
All right. Thanks, Vanessa. Chris Strub's going to be in touch. We're going to get that on over to you. I'll be mailing those things out. Kat, again, I'm so like jazzed that you are not just part of the Neon One ecosystem, but more importantly, the perspective that you bring is what is absolutely needed. The things that we're trying to change industry-wide toward here, that's more important than any technology. And having that right mindset is we need more folks like this. So you sharing this today is such an honor. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
Awesome. Thank you. We're going to be up with our next guest, Chris Strub, right after this.
During today's episode, one lucky live viewer will win a $500 donation to a nonprofit of their choice. We'll also be giving away 2 Trapper Keepers filled with some of Tim's favorite reads for nonprofits. Join the conversation with us live for a chance to win one of these 3 prizes. Winners will be announced at the end of the live stream. Join us tomorrow, May 31st at 1 p.m. Eastern for a blast from the past with our Saved by the Bell themed workshop, where we dive into the nostalgic world of the 1990s to uncover timeless strategies for turning single-time donors into lifetime supporters. In this session, we'll harness the psychological power of the pecan rule, focusing on how pivotal moments and memorable experiences can transform Giving Day participants into recurring donors. Get ready to ring the bell for recurring success and ensure your donors' last memories are as impactful as their first.
5 years, for 5 years, we have had this moment. This moment right here is the best moment of Give Local York. $4.17 million raised in this community in 24 hours. Absolutely incredible.
Let's ring that bell. Love it. So, Chris, this is a fun one. We kind of played with her format this month, and we're going to go back to the regular format, folks, of an external expert. But we broke things because Giving Days are just too awesome to we have too many awesome people internally. Had to give you both a spotlight. Chris Strub, welcome formally as a guest to Generosity Experience Live, not just behind the scenes.
It's cool to be in the producer chair and the guest chair. Tim, thanks for having me. And thanks to everybody who's watching. The discussion in the comments that I've been monitoring today has just been absolutely fantastic. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who's tuned in today, both live and then on replay eventually.
So we're going to still keep our time, and we're doing good on time. So let's get into a lovely conversation. Tell us a bit about you. You showed a great clip that I know you used to cue up a bit about kind of your journey. Tell us, for folks who don't know, the man behind Generosity Experience Live, the producer side, who is Chris Strub? How did you come to Neon One?
So I came to Neon One after, it's a very long story, Tim, but after really 7 years plus now of working in the Giving Day space. I'm a social media practitioner at heart. I can do the thing where I can take Tim off the screen. Watch this. So I work in the social media space. and really developed a passion for nonprofits after taking a big road trip around the country about 9-10 years ago. I learned about giving days at a meeting with the Community Foundation of Louisville back in 2016. And I've been working with their team on Give for Good Louisville, which is each September now. This will be my 8th year working with them. And so much like Kathleen was talking about developing this love of the Giving Day concept, that's where I land as well. I've worked now with 34 Giving Days over the last 8 years. Earlier this month, I was in St. Louis with the great Emily Bauman. And then before that, I was in York, PA. You saw a little clip there from Give Local York a couple of years ago. So, I've been very blessed, Tim, to work with a lot of different Giving Day clients over the years. And last year, got contacted by the great Tim Sarrantonio and my boss, Abby Jarvis, and joined the Neon One team. It's been absolutely wonderful serving as our digital content producer since September. Of course, producing Generosity Experience Live every month, and also still getting to support a lot of the great work that Kathleen and all the folks at Neon Giving Days are doing year round.
So, and I saw earlier we had a nice question from Jonathan about marketing budget and spend. And I actually want to kind of revisit that question when we are talking about video. But first, let's kind of talk about what is it that you've witnessed after all the work that you've done, all the nonprofits that you've worked with? What is so unique about this format for communities?
I think, Tim, when you're on the ground and you feel the energy around you in a community, that's why, of course, I helped shape some of the monologue here today about the location-based emotion that is felt in these Giving Days. So it's been really fascinating for me listening to the comments based conversation today about cause-based and how a lot of folks who are watching today are thinking in that other direction as well. So two totally different divergent paths, but there's really something very special, especially now in 2024 that I would consider us in a post-pandemic era, Tim, where people, and Kathleen was touching on this as well, people really want to connect with other people in their communities. They really want to support the causes that are around them. And then, as Kathleen was talking about too, the peer-to-peer aspect of it is the people that live around you and work around you and support the nonprofits that make these communities so special are the ones that we are very tempted and encouraged to support during these Giving Day events. And that's where we see a lot of that momentum. I think it's also important, Tim, to touch on the sponsor element as well, how important a lot of these local businesses are to growing the Giving Day experiences in these individual communities, and then for these cause-based days as well. So local businesses have a big opportunity here to step in and really display their support for not just their favorite causes, but the community as a whole when you have a Giving Day like Give for Good Louisville or Midlands Gives down here in South Carolina.
And this is why it's the point of the day, and I've seen some hosts frame it well, this is just a good way to get money. And it's not that. It's so much more than that. If you contextualize the day by its community power, it's even on the cause side, it's power in catalyzing that change that you want to see. That's when you can start to find proper success. But a key tactical ingredient that we've seen is the power of video, Chris. So talk about why is video becoming such a powerful storytelling medium across the board, but obviously with your expertise in Giving Days kind of shining through into that.
I could spend an hour running down statistics about.
But you always like to keep us on time. So yes.
It's funny when I'm the guest. It's funny how I'm the one who always has to shut the show down. But Facebook users spending more than 50% of their time on the app watching videos. 90% of businesses using video as part of their marketing strategy in 2024, including, of course, Neon One. And live video really being that key that sort of breaks through the algorithms oftentimes on social media that really drives a lot more engagement than your typical content. But Tim, I think as we look, and one thing we didn't touch on today is the growing power of AI, right? And how we could do a month's worth of shows just on that. But what is not replaceable by AI are those emotions, particularly in these community-based giving days that come out of these celebrations. That's why I wanted to show you my buddy Philip Gibbons sort of tearing up there a little bit at the end of Give Local York 2022. When you're a part of these movements and these celebrations, there's nothing like it. Like, this is what gets me going in the morning. This is why I wake up. This is why I committed my career really to being the giving day guy over the last decade. Is we're creating moments, we're creating experiences, and we're creating these transcendent concepts in these communities that I think is an opportunity for a lot of other communities now, 15 plus years into the giving day era, to really try and step into. And what's so special about all of these moments, Tim, is that everyone can be a philanthropist on a giving day, right? It's not just the sponsors. It's not just, the folks with DAFs. It's a $10 donation can make a massive difference to a nonprofit, because it all adds up.
Which goes back to Jonathan's question. Well, obviously, we can get into the nuts and bolts, and this is Kat's expertise on giving day management, design, budgeting, things like that. Video, organic engagement, creating spaces to communicate through social media. You don't have to spend a pretty penny on this type of stuff. You can do these. Even Kat's example of the woman who was using video to live stream herself, right? Like on the roof. That's the phone, right? So Chris, maybe quickly touch on Jonathan's question from what you've seen, and then we'll kind of wrap things up with one final question for you before we start to give more stuff away.
Of course, budget is always going to be a subjective question based on the size of your organization and the resources you have available. I think that video in particular opens up a big door for sponsors and other community stakeholders to be visible. And that's where you can really open up a marketing budget by bringing in. We do that with Generosity Exchange. We're going to be supported by sponsors in October.
Thanks, Kindsight and ClickBid so far, and others coming.
I think that one big real key of video is that it gives you a canvas that you can use however you like, kind of like we're doing here with Generosity Experience Live, that you can really fill in the blanks and do what you want with it. And perhaps even more importantly than that, Tim, another thing that Kathleen said is equipping the nonprofits to create content on their own. That's where a lot of the real growth of Giving Days comes from, because it's a numbers game. There's only so much that we can do as Neon One or as Earth Gives or as, Give STL Day. What we really need to do is inspire and teach and equip the organizations themselves to also be creating, so that we can create that web and create that real movement within a community that spans the gamut there.
So let's build on one final question. I see a new comment from Elizabeth here, so we got to make sure that she is part of our wheel of generosity.
I just added it right in there, so we'll
add it right there. Awesome. So why should every community, before we go to the wheel, why should every community have a giving day?
I think that every community has truly special people like Emily Bauman, like Megan Given, like Christina Miller in Louisville, like the newly retired, congratulations, Joanne Turnquist in Columbia, South Carolina. And the X factor in all of these, like Rhonda with Earth Gives. These giving days are a product of the people who dream big enough to create these community-wide or these cause-wide experiences and moments that are so incredibly beneficial to the constituents that they serve. Yeah. And so my ask for you watching on replay or watching live is, are you that person in your community? If there's not already a giving day that exists, are you that person that's going to step up and make this happen? Because nowhere in this 45 minutes have we said that this is anything easy or anything simple, but we have repeatedly said how incredibly rewarding and how incredibly just
the empowerment and the transformative possibilities that we've seen.
Well, for this Giving Day movement to grow, Tim, it's going to require people to stand up and to lead in their own communities. And that's what Kathleen Murphy Toms did years ago in Illinois. You know, that's what so many of the folks that I've mentioned here and my clients over the years have done. And that's what you watching at home, if you're wondering, is this something for us? It takes courage. It takes effort, but it's amazing. And there's a whole community of people out there and a community here at Neon One as well that would love to support you in that effort if it's something that you're looking to do. So, Tim, I have broken my own cardinal rule. I yell at Tim every single show not to go over, and here I am going over. So I'm going to bring up the wheel here.
The wheel, the Neon One branded colored wheel will come up. Folks, drop an idea in the comments of a better name for the wheel, and maybe we'll adopt that.
Stand up and lead. Before we spin it, Tim, I got to add Gabrielle because she got in.
Gabrielle's new, so we got to add that.
See how that works? I got my eyes on it.
We're going to do two spins here. I have another Trapper Keeper. I'm saving one Trapper Keeper for my workshop tomorrow, inspired by Saved by the Bell. But we're going to give another one away. What do I have already in here? Oh, I have some I got Rhea Wong's book in here. Get That Money, Honey. Great tactical thing for nonprofit folks in particular.
Let's give it a spin for the Trapper Keeper first.
Let's spin for the Trapper Keeper.
I love the wheel, Tim.
I love the wheel too. Jonathan. Now we're removing people who won, right?
Yep. I'm going to remove Jonathan, and we're going to spin it one more time. Again, this is for a $500 donation.
This is for a $500 donation. If you, for instance, are a Giving Day host and you want to disperse it however you please to other nonprofits, we could do that too. So it's a $500. You folks can disperse it if you want, or take it all for yourself. We will not tell you anybody what you did. So go for it, Chris. Who is winning?
Let's give it a spin.
Okay, drum roll.
And by the way, these are Neon One colors. So if our marketing team is watching,
no whammies.
Brand.
Charles literally wrote no whammies.
We love that. No whammies. Oh, there you go.
It's got no connection. There is not a connection between the wheel and writing no whammies. Charles did not find a secret way to do this.
Tim, that's going to wrap it up for
Yes.
today's episode of Generosity Experience Live that went 2 minutes over, so I'm going to yell at myself for doing that. But we want to remind you that Tim is hosting a webinar tomorrow that you can register for at neon1.com/webinars. We want to leave you wanting more. So whether you're watching live or on replay, you can check out the replay of Tim's webinar at neon1.com/webinars as well. Tim, we will see you back on June 22nd for episode 006.
006. We'll have a little teaser of that, I believe.
Let's close us out.
Yeah, so folks, I want to thank all of you for joining us today for May's special edition on Giving Days for Generosity Experience Live. I want to thank everybody who commented, everybody who participated in the conversation, and as well as our guests, Chris Strub and Kat Murphy Toms. So I'm going to leave you with a little outro here, telling you about some fun stuff. Maybe I'll see you tomorrow for some live coaching with the folks over at Freedom Reads. We're going to dive in to a bunch of different stuff, but I can't wait to see you next month as well. Really good episode, and just rock it out, folks. You got this.
How can surveys inform community building? Join us for a special Tuesday episode of Generosity Experience Live on Tuesday, June 25th, featuring Kevin Schulman, founder of Donor Voice, and Jean Marie Trick, implementation manager at Neon One. RSVP now on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube to be reminded as showtime approaches. Join us tomorrow, May 31st at 1 p.m. Eastern for a blast from the past with our Saved by the Bell themed workshop, where we dive into the nostalgic world of the 1990s to uncover timeless strategies for turning single-time donors into lifetime supporters. In this session, we'll harness the psychological power of the peak-end rule, focusing on how pivotal moments and memorable experiences can transform Giving Day participants into recurring donors. Get ready to ring the bell for recurring success and ensure your donors' last memories are as impactful as their first.
Thanks for watching Neon One on YouTube. Subscribe to keep up with all our upcoming videos, and check out another video right here.